or so we thought. We load everything into the trunk of the car, and the director says, "Oh, I'm missing one of my lights. I'm missing a light." And I'm like, "So what, dude? That light. Let's get the out of here." And the director goes, "Oh, well, it was a $1,200 light." And I said, "I don't give a I'm not going back into the creepy abandoned town in the middle of nowhere with the underground mad scientist lab. I'm not going back." And Olivier says, I'm with Tom. I'm not going back either." And the director says, "Somebody has to go back because I need that light, so let's all play rock, paper, scissors for it. And the loser goes back into the town to get the light." Look, I never liked rock, paper, scissors. I hate that. When there's something that somebody has to do and it's an undesirable task, everybody's always like, "Let's play rock, paper, scissors." I hate rock, paper, scissors. It's an impossible game to win. I always lose. We agree we'll play rock, paper, scissors. Guess what? I lose. Of course I lose. But I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm acting like a child, and Olivier has always been the more mature of our sort of duo. So he stands up, and he's just sick of listening to us and complain, and he goes, "You know what? I will go back. I'll go back and get the light. Where is it?" And the director says, "It's in the sanatorium." Of course it's in the sanatorium. Where else would it be? Where else would the lost light be than the most haunted possible place in this abandoned town? It wouldn't make any sense for it to be anywhere else. Olivier goes, "Okay, cool, I'll go get the light." And with that, Olivier just turns and walks into the darkness. I turn to the director and I'm just like, "Dude, give me a flashlight." You gotta understand, Olivier isn't just my producer at this point. He's my best friend. And I cannot in good conscience let my best friend wander back into an abandoned town to get somebody else's light by himself. I just can't do it. So I run to catch up with him. So I reach him and I'm like, "I got us a flashlight." And Olivier turns and looks at me and he doesn't say anything. He just smiles, like a full teeth grin, like one of those smiles that somebody makes when they're terrified or when they're fully aware that they're making a very poor decision and they're about to do something really stupid. Through the forest, around the fence, up the hill, down into the valley, we are back in Tranquil. It's pitch black now and I'm carrying this little rinky-dinky ass flashlight and we're just navigating through the town and we're on the way back to the sanatorium. I ask Olivier, where do you you have any idea where we put this light? Olivier says, "Yeah, it's in the big main room. I saw him put it down there. I just don't like him, so I was just gonna let him leave it there and hope that nobody noticed and we just drive home and we'd have a good chuckle about this later on." So somehow I managed to let out a muffled laugh because it's funny, but at the same time, it's the reason why I'm standing in an abandoned town in the middle of nowhere with a creepy ass mad scientist underground lab at like 2 a.m. We go up the old wooden stairs and push this giant creaky ass door open and step inside the sanatorium, and we're at the end of this long hallway. And at the end of that long hallway, there's a giant, big, massive open room, and that's where the light is. So we start walking down this hallway, and there's doorways lining this hallway, and they're all the padded rooms that crazy people would hang out in. We get into the big main room, and as we enter this big main room, I shine the flashlight up on the wall, and just like this perfect, massive piece of art up on the wall, it is painted, "Please burn me down." Olivier says, "Oh, there's the light." Walks over, picks the light up, and now that we have this all-important light in our possession, we turn and start walking back down that hallway towards the main door. Now, what happens next is probably the most horrendous thing that I've ever witnessed in my life, and I'm sure Olivier would say the same thing. In fact, I might actually call him and get his account for this video. But what happens next is the single Most horrendous thing that I've ever witnessed in my life. So like I said, the hallway is lined with doors on both sides, right? And they're like holding cells, or they're like padded rooms or something. You know the ones? Yeah, you know the ones. Now, I'm not exactly sure how to explain this. You know that feeling you get when somebody is watching you? Or you know when you see something out of the corner of your eye and you quickly turn your head and there's nothing there? Or you feel the hair raise up on the back of your neck like someone's standing behind you, but by the time you spin around to face it, it's gone? Okay, that happened to both of us at the exact same time. Except something was watching us. And that thing in the corner of your eye that you don't expect to see when you look, we saw it. And that thing that you feel behind you when the hair raises up on your neck and you spin around, and when you spin around it's gone, it was there when we spun around. In perfect synchronization, all this happened. We turn and shine the flashlight into the padded room next to us, and there it is. A shadow standing up from the floor. Not a shadow cast on the floor, a shadow standing up off the floor. It looked just like a person, except it wasn't a person. It was featureless and almost transparent and massive and daunting and rigidly standing there with its arms by its sides. You can't see from where you're at right now, but I have goosebumps all over me. And at the same time, we just started to run. And we were so scared, and it was so dark. We were just like two frantic animals running from a predator. It was like some sort of primal survival instinct had taken over, and we were just absolutely frantic, and we were falling over each other and tripping over rubble and tripping over pieces of fallen wall and ladders and all of this stuff that we can't see in the dark. And somehow we made it to the front door. We kicked that motherfucker open and ran out into the middle of the street. And we didn't stop running. We weren't even thinking. We were just moving as fast as we could, as far away from whatever the hell that thing was, as far away as we could get. As fast as we could get there, we were going. And after running for what seemed like a marathon, we just finally stopped, and we almost collapsed on the ground, and we're just spinning our heads like a swivel from side to side, just trying to orient ourselves and gain some sort of information about where we had ran to. And I'm gasping for breath and looking around, and I'd say to Olivier, "Where are we?" And Olivier says, I don't know. And I picked a flashlight up and I flash it around and I'm looking. And that's when I have another terrifying realization, and I say out loud, "Dude, we're lost." And I mean, we're so scared, and it's so dark, and this town is so big that we've completely lost ourselves in what's transpired here. And I remember Olivier gasping, "I think the car's that way." You know, and he just kind of points out with one hand, just totally exhausted. So I turn the flashlight in the direction that he's pointing, and I shit you not, I take one step, and this flashlight flickers twice and dies. We're lost, it's dark, we have no flashlight, and there's that thing in the sanatorium. I honestly don't remember the next 30 minutes. And I don't remember the next 30 minutes because we were just running on pure adrenaline and racked with fear. But we found our way out. And this time when we crossed those train tracks and went up that hill, before going into that forest, we turned around and we looked down on Tranquille one last time. And guess what? The lights in the sanatorium were on. So we barreled through the trees and around the iron gate and over to the car. And I remember Olivier opening up the car door, and he's leaning the front seat forward and he's scrambling to try and get into the back seat of the car. And I had just had enough. I remember putting my foot on his ass and just shoving him into the back of the car, standing the seat up, jumped in, slammed the door, and I just said, "Drive." The director started, "Oh, what happened?" And I said, "Shut the f*** up and drive." So we made it back home, mostly unscathed and in one piece. But you know what the craziest part of this whole thing was? You remember those kids I mentioned at the beginning of the story? Well, when I got home, I started Googling Tranquille. And I started researching that abandoned town. And that's when I found out that Tranquille was an abandoned town where people with tuberculosis would go and live out their final days. And that's when I found out it was the most haunted place in North America. And that's also when I found out that those underground tunnels were used to remove the dead bodies from their houses without having to wheel corpses through the streets of the town and scare the shit out of all the children and everybody else living there. But the scariest thing that I found out was that 10 years prior to our experience in Tranquille, 2 kids went out there ghost hunting. And they fell through the floor in one of the houses and died. A boy and a girl.